The illusion you were sold. You were told that if you worked hard, stayed out of trouble, got a decent education, and played by the rules, you would have a good life. Not a rich life, not a poor one, but a safe, respectable, middle-class life. A house in the suburbs, 2 cars in the driveway, a college fund for the kids, retirement by 65. That was the promise. And for a while, it seemed to work, at least on the surface. But now, more and more people are starting to feel it. Something is deeply wrong. You did what they told you. You followed the script. You sacrificed your youth, your dreams, your time. And yet, you're still struggling. Still living paycheck to paycheck. Still worried about medical bills, job security, inflation, rent, and debt. You feel like you're falling behind, but you don't know why. You feel exhausted, but can't afford to stop. You feel trapped, but don't see the bars. That's not an accident. It's the design. This is not just about bad luck or bad politics. This is about a system that engineered the illusion of the middle class as a control mechanism, a comfort trap to keep you docile, obedient, and quiet. You weren't meant to thrive. You were meant to comply. The middle class wasn't built for freedom. It was built for stability. And stability, in the hands of those in power, is just another word for control. In this video, we're going to dismantle that illusion, piece by piece. We'll expose how the middle-class identity was manufactured after war and crisis, not as a reward, but as a buffer zone. How modern society uses debt and comfort and fear to keep people in place. Why the middle-class mindset is a trap disguised as success. And most importantly, what it takes to break free, not just financially, but mentally and spiritually. This is not a conspiracy theory. This is not an attack on working people. This is a truth hidden in plain sight, one that affects millions across countries, cultures, and generations. And once you see it, you'll never be able to unsee it again. The invention of the middle class, a convenient buffer zone. To understand the truth about the middle class, we have to go back to where it all began, not with wealth, but with war. The idea of a middle class, as we know it today, didn't exist for most of human history. For thousands of years, society was brutally simple. The elite ruled, and the rest served. There were kings and peasants, landlords and laborers. A few lived in palaces. The many lived in survival. But something changed after the world was torn apart. In the aftermath of World War II, nations were broken, economies collapsed, and revolutions were boiling. The rich were afraid, terrified in fact, that the masses might rise up, like they had in Russia, China, and parts of Europe. The world was unstable, angry, and exhausted. People had seen death, destruction, and hunger. They weren't going to tolerate being stepped on forever. So, the system adapted. Rather than risk another uprising of the poor, leaders, especially in Western nations, crafted something new, a middle ground, a psychological compromise, a way to buy peace without sharing power. They didn't give the people real control, they gave them comfort. Governments launched massive public spending projects. Veterans were given access to homes, education, and job opportunities. Suburbs were born. Factory jobs multiplied. Wages rose. Pensions were promised. A new narrative was sold. You may not be rich, but you can have a good life. And millions believed it. Why wouldn't they? After years of bombs, hunger, and fear, anything felt better. But it wasn't just generosity, it was strategy. The emergence of the middle class was not an accident of prosperity. It was a design of power, a a calculated decision to create a layer of citizens that were comfortable enough not to rebel, but dependent enough not to question. They were given enough wealth to aspire, but not enough to escape. They were placed between the poor, whom they were taught to fear, and the rich, whom they were taught to admire. They were told they were the backbone of the nation, when in reality, they were the buffer zone, the shock absorbers of capitalism, the firewall between elite wealth and mass unrest. And it worked. For decades, it worked brilliantly. The middle class paid taxes, bought homes, filled shopping malls, raised obedient children, voted predictably, and most of all, they believed in the dream, in the system, in the fairness of it all. But underneath that illusion of progress, the power structure remained untouched. The rich stayed rich, not because they worked harder, but because they owned more. The poor stayed poor, not because they were lazy, but because they had no access to mobility. And the middle class? They were stuck in the middle, grateful, hopeful, quiet. They were never invited to the table of power. They were simply given a seat in the waiting room. And over time, even that seat began to shrink. What started as a post-war solution became a permanent trap. As corporations globalized and profits soared, wages stagnated. As automation rose, job security vanished. As housing costs ballooned, debt replaced ownership. The good life that was once promised, it became more expensive and harder to reach with every generation. But by then, the illusion had already taken root. The middle class became not just an economic category, but a psychological identity. And identities are harder to break than cages. People weren't just earning middle-class wages, they were thinking middle-class thoughts. Like, as long as I have a steady job, I'm safe. If I buy a house, I've made it. Debt is normal. Everyone has it. Retirement at 65 is just how life works. But those thoughts weren't born from truth. They were taught by ads, by teachers, by politicians, by movies, by people who needed you to stay in the middle, not rise, not fall, but stay. Because when you're in the middle, you're easier to manage. You're predictable. You're distracted. You're too comfortable to riot, too burdened to escape. That was the genius of the invention. A class that believes it's thriving while it's actually just surviving. The middle class was not a reward for progress. It was a buffer for control. And the more you accept that identity without question, the more power you surrender without realizing it. The comfort trap. How convenience became control. Control doesn't always look like chains. Sometimes it looks like a couch, a stable paycheck, an iPhone upgrade every 2 years, a subscription to comfort, one monthly payment at a time. That's the brilliance of modern control. It doesn't need violence. It only needs your comfort to become your prison. The illusion of freedom. Walk into a middle-class home and you'll see things that kings of old could only dream of. Clean running water, endless entertainment, climate-controlled rooms, instant food from a glowing box. By all accounts, this looks like freedom. But if you step back, it's something else entirely. Because freedom isn't about what you have, it's about what you can walk away from. And the truth is, most people can't walk away from anything. They can't quit their job, can't stop working for 2 months, can't move cities, can't skip a loan payment, can't say no to their boss, can't live a week without swiping a card. That's not freedom. That's dependency, masked in convenience. The psychology of numbing. The system figured out something terrifying. People don't need to be threatened into submission. They just need to be comfortably numb. So what did they do? They gave us fast food to silence hunger, endless content to drown boredom, shopping to ease emptiness, social media to simulate connection, alcohol to unwind, antidepressants to function. You're not resisting the system because you're not even feeling enough to care. You're busy, you're tired, you're entertained, you're medicated. Your instincts have been dulled, your discomfort has been outsourced, and your awareness has been stolen, not through fear, but through pleasure. This is not a coincidence, it's a design. How the system buys your silence. You work all week, you earn your salary, you buy your things, and for a moment, you feel in control. But the truth is, your income is already promised to your expenses. Your free time is already claimed by your fatigue. Your mental space is already hijacked by noise. The system gives you just enough to stay obedient. It feeds you dopamine in small doses, a weekend off, a holiday discount, a promotion you waited years for, and you feel rewarded. But really, you're being trained like a pet. Sit, stay, don't ask questions, here's your treat. You trade your dreams for devices, your ambition for subscriptions, your fire for furniture. And then one day, you wake up burnt out, in debt, unsure how you got here. Because the trap wasn't painful, it was pleasant. Why most people never leave. Escaping poverty is hard, but escaping comfort, that's even harder. When you're poor, you know you're in pain. You know you need to fight. But when you're middle class, the pain is quieter. A dull ache of dissatisfaction, a vague sense of being unfulfilled, a silent dread on Sunday nights. It's not bad enough to scream, but not good enough to smile. So you stay, you rationalize, you tell yourself, I should be grateful. Other people have it worse. This is just how life is. But inside, you know this isn't the life you were meant for. You know something's off. You just don't know how to name it. That's how the comfort trap wins. It convinces you to defend the very cage that keeps you stuck. Warning: comfort isn't neutral, it's political. Every system of power throughout history has figured this out. If you want people to obey, don't punish them, comfort them. Bread and circuses, cable and couches, Amazon and AirPods. They don't care if you're happy, they just need you to be quiet. Comfort is not a gift, it's currency. And they're spending it to buy your loyalty, your energy, and your future. Because as long as you're comfortable enough not to question, you'll keep playing the game. Even when the rules don't serve you, even when the prize is a lie, even when the system is rigged. And the longer you stay, the harder it gets to leave. But make no mistake, what you call comfort, they call compliance. And that's how the middle class, once promised as a path to freedom, became the most obedient force in society. The debt collar, enslavement through loans and mortgages. If you want to control someone, you don't need chains, you just need debt. Because a person in debt is not just broke, they're owned. The promise that traps you. It starts with a simple story. You're told that buying a house is the ultimate achievement, that taking student loans is an investment, that using credit cards builds your future, that borrowing money is how responsible adults move forward in life. And it sounds reasonable, even empowering. You're not taking, you're building. You're not poor, you're leveraged. You're not in trouble, you're just paying it off. But here's the truth they never say out loud. Debt is the modern-day leash. It's how the system keeps you in line without ever raising its voice. Debt creates obedience. Think about it. You owe $300,000 on a mortgage. You owe $60,000 in student loans. You carry $15,000 in credit card debt. You're financing your car, your phone, even your couch. So what happens? You can't afford to lose your job. You can't risk upsetting your boss. You can't quit to start your dream. You can't speak up when something's wrong. You live under a silent fear. If I miss a payment, everything collapses. So you stay quiet. You keep grinding. You call it being responsible. But really, you've been trained. And the training was paid for with interest. The cycle of borrowing to live. Middle-class life has been engineered to require debt just to function. College tuition, loan. First home, mortgage. Medical emergency, credit card. Wedding, financing. Even a vacation, buy now, pay later. They've created a society where being normal is impossible without borrowing. So even if you earn well, you never own well. Your income flows straight into repayments. And the more you pay, the more they lend. The more you borrow, the more you owe. The more you owe, the more you obey. It's not economics, it's psychological warfare. Debt isn't just financial, it's mental. A person in debt doesn't just lose money, they lose freedom of thought. They can't plan long-term, they can't say no, they can't take a break, they can't imagine anything different. Because every time they dream, the debt whispers, "Be realistic. You can't afford that. Don't risk what you have." Debt isn't just a number, it's a mindset. It turns people into prisoners without a visible cell. The debt work feedback loop. Now watch what happens when debt meets employment. You work to pay off your loans. You hate your job, but you need it. You get promoted, not because you want more responsibility, but because you need more money. So you buy a bigger house, a newer car, take out more credit, and suddenly you've leveled up your lifestyle, but also your leash. Now you're even more trapped. You can't afford to quit. You can't afford to slow down. You're working to maintain a life you wouldn't need if you weren't working so much. That's not life. That's indentured servitude in a necktie. Student loans, the first trap. Let's not forget the most diabolical debt of all, education loans. They tell you at 18, borrow now, succeed later. But what they really mean is, start your adult life already in chains. You graduate, you don't own anything yet, but you already owe tens of thousands. You're forced to take the first job you can find just to survive. And just like that, your creativity, your freedom, your curiosity, all sacrificed at the altar of monthly payments. They didn't just steal your money, they rented your future. Mortgages, the golden cage. Then comes the next trap, the house. You're told renting is for losers, that owning a home is the American dream. But they never mention 30 years of debt, interest that triples what you borrowed, constant upkeep and hidden costs, the inability to move or pivot easily, A mortgage turns your freedom into bricks. It pins you to a location, a routine, a role. You're no longer mobile, you're anchored. And when the job market changes, when your needs shift, you stay put, not because you want to, but because your mortgage demands it. That's not a dream. That's a lifetime sentence with granite countertops. Why the system loves you in debt. Here's the secret the system doesn't want you to know. A person in debt is the perfect citizen. They work harder. They complain less. They avoid risk. They consume more. They stay dependent. You think your debt is a burden. To them, it's a product. You are more valuable when you owe. That's why credit is pushed so aggressively. That's why financial literacy is never taught in school. That's why everyone around you is in the same trap, so no one questions it. So the next time you feel guilty for being stuck, remember, this isn't your failure. It's their design. They didn't just lend you money, they bought your silence. And as long as you keep making payments, they know exactly where you are. Under control. Status anxiety. Competing in a rigged game. There's a quiet war happening every day, not with weapons, but with cars, clothes, degrees, and vacations. It's called status anxiety, and it's one of the most effective control mechanisms ever created. The race you never signed up for. From the moment you enter society, you're placed in a race, not to be free, not to be happy, but to be seen as successful. You're judged by the job you have, the title you carry, the car you drive, the home you bought, the brand on your wrist, the school your kids attend. You didn't choose these metrics. They were handed to you. You were told they represent progress, but really, they represent obedience. Because the more you chase status, the more you conform to the rules of the game. And the rules are designed not for you to win, but for you to keep playing. Why status is a perfect trap. Status isn't just a goal, it's a moving target. No matter what you achieve, there's always more to reach. You get the job, but someone has a better one. You buy a house, but someone lives in a better neighborhood. You travel, but someone travels in first class. You never feel done. You never feel enough. You're always trying to catch up. To what? To a phantom ideal you never defined. And that's the brilliance. They make you run without ever giving you a finish line. Comparison as control. In the past, you only compared yourself to your neighbors. Today, you compare yourself to the entire world. Thanks to social media, you see the entrepreneur making millions by age 25, the family that vacations in Greece every summer, the influencer with perfect skin and a beachfront condo. It's all curated, polished, staged, but your brain doesn't know the difference. You just feel like you're losing. And when people feel like they're losing, they do two things: work harder and spend more. That's all the system wants. Your insecurity becomes their profit. Your doubt becomes their dominance. Status fuels consumption. To maintain status, you must spend. To upgrade status, you must spend more. So you lease a luxury car you can't afford, buy designer labels on credit, renovate your home for Instagram, send your kids to private school just to fit in, take on debt for weddings, gadgets, and looks. And when the bills arrive, you go back to work. You trade more time, more energy just to keep up. It's not wealth. It's not freedom. It's performance. And it's exhausting. You're not living for yourself. You're living for the perception of yourself. That's not life. That's marketing. And you're the product. The mental cost of status games. Status anxiety is more than financial. It's emotional and spiritual. It makes people feel shame for being behind, hide their struggles, lie about their success, work jobs they hate to impress people they don't like, avoid risk, growth, and authenticity. It crushes authenticity in favor of appearances. It creates a population that is tired, anxious, and insecure, but still smiling in photos. And worst of all, it convinces people that the problem is them, not the game itself. So instead of questioning the system, they blame themselves. They work harder, they hustle longer, they break down quietly, all for a trophy that doesn't exist. Why the system depends on status anxiety. The elite don't need to oppress you. They just need you to oppress yourself by chasing a status they define. Because while you compete with your peers, they extract the real power. You consume, you obey, you compare, you stay busy. And when you start to wake up, they change the trend, move the goalpost, release a new must-have. Status games don't empower you. They distract you, they divide you, and they keep you buying into a system that profits from your discontent. So ask yourself, who are you competing with? What if you opted out? What if you stopped performing? What if you built a life based on values, not validation? You'd spend less, worry less, work on what matters, think more clearly, feel more alive. That's where they don't want you to stop. Because the moment you no longer seek their approval, you become free. So the next time you feel behind, ask who's measuring and who benefits when I feel this way. Because the game isn't just rigged, it's engineered to never let you win. And the moment you realize that, you stop playing by their rules. The middle-class script, the life you're expected to follow. Before you could even speak for yourself, the world began writing a story on your behalf, a script. And like millions of others, you were handed this script the moment you were born. Be good. Get good grades. Go to a good school. Get a good job. Work hard. Buy a house. Raise a family. Retire at 65. Die quietly. They told you it was the formula for success, but they never told you whose success was it really building. It begins in childhood, the first stage of conditioning. Even as a child, you were trained to follow structure. Sit still, obey, memorize, regurgitate. Curiosity became distraction. Creativity became disobedience. Questioning became talking back. And slowly, your unique mind was trimmed, shaped, and filed down until it fit perfectly into a system that needed workers, not thinkers. You weren't being educated, you were being standardized, prepared not for life, but for a lifetime of compliance. Education as obedience training. By the time you were a teenager, the message was clear. Your worth equals your performance. Grades, test scores, prestige of the university you got into. And if you failed, you weren't just behind, you were labeled lazy, unmotivated, a disappointment. No one asked what lit you up inside. No one cared what you truly wanted. What mattered was, could you follow the script? So you signed the loan papers, took the classes, checked the boxes, and hoped that one day all of this would mean something. The job, the new classroom. Then came the workforce, another set of expectations, another cage, just bigger. 40+ hours a week, 2 weeks off per year. Clocks, cubicles, deadlines, dress codes, hierarchies, reviews. You played the part, smiled in meetings, chased promotions, swallowed frustration. Because that's what the script said. Climb the ladder. Stability is success. But no one told you that ladder was leaned against the wrong wall. No one told you the promotions came with more stress, not more freedom. And still, you stayed because leaving would make you irresponsible. And worse, ungrateful. Home ownership, the crown jewel of the script. You're told that buying a house is the pinnacle, a symbol that you've made it. But what is a mortgage, really? A 30-year financial leash, a constant burden to maintain and protect, a reason to stay in one place, even if life asks you to grow elsewhere. It's not a dream, it's a contract with comfort, and often regret. And still, the pressure to own is intense, because the script says, if you rent, you're failing. If you don't settle down, you're lost. If you're not investing in property, you're throwing life away. But maybe you're just throwing away someone else's illusion. Marriage, kids, and the next generation of the script. Next comes the pressure to settle down, start a family, and repeat the cycle. You're told it's time to grow up. Get serious. Think about the children. So you trade dreams for dependability, adventures for routines, your own truth for collective expectations. You become a parent, and before you know it, you're handing your child the same script you once received. And the cycle continues, unquestioned, unchallenged. The script makes you predictable. The brilliance of the middle-class script is that it doesn't need enforcement. It relies on culture. Friends, family, movies, schools, churches, TV, all telling you, this is the way. Everyone does it. Don't be weird. So instead of asking why, you just keep walking the path, step by step, year by year. Until one day, you look around and wonder, whose life am I living? What the script never prepares you for. The script says, retire at 65 and finally enjoy life. But by the time you get there, your body is tired. Your mind is anxious. Your dreams have been buried under decades of bills. Your soul numb. And you start to realize you didn't really live. You just survived efficiently. You followed the script so well that you forgot to write your own. Why the system needs you to stay on script. Because someone who follows the script is predictable, taxable, contained, dependent, safe. Safe for the system, but not safe for themselves. Because nothing is more dangerous than a person who wakes up at 40, 50, or 60 and realizes they've spent their whole life building someone else's dream. So ask yourself, what if the script isn't your life path, but your life sentence? And what if the only way out is to stop performing and start questioning everything? Obedience disguised as success. Why the system loves the middle class. The system doesn't want rebels. It wants reliable contributors. It doesn't reward freedom. It rewards obedience, disguised as success. And no group has been more perfectly engineered for this than the middle class. They are educated enough to run the machines, but conditioned enough never to question who built them. The ideal worker class. Think about it. The middle class is taught to value job security over creativity, fear instability more than mediocrity, trade time for money and call it ambition, stay quiet to protect what they've earned. They don't strike, they don't question authority, they don't disrupt the status quo. They clock in, clock out, pay taxes, follow rules, vote predictably, and police each other. From a systemic perspective, that's perfect. They keep the economy running, the profits flowing, the elite protected, all while thinking they're winning. The programming of polite obedience. This isn't accidental. It's psychological engineering. You're taught that following rules equals good, that being disruptive equals dangerous, that playing it safe equals responsible, that making money equals the only metric of worth. So when you work long hours at a job you hate, avoid risks to maintain appearances, sacrifice passion for practicality, you're praised. You're doing great. You're being smart. You're successful. But inside, you feel the truth. You're tired, uninspired, disconnected, numb. That's not success. That's trained obedience wrapped in applause. The Good Citizen Badge. The system gives you rewards for being compliant, a salary, a promotion, a loan approval, a house in a good neighborhood, a plaque after 20 years of service. It feeds your ego, not your soul, because ego keeps you chasing. Soul keeps you asking why. And the system doesn't want you to ask why. It wants you busy, slightly dissatisfied, always chasing the next external validation. That's the sweet spot, where you'll never revolt because you're still hoping.
Why the rich love the middle class. The ultra-wealthy don't fear the middle class. They depend on them to buy the products they sell, to work in the corporations they own, to take the loans they profit from, to uphold the culture that defends them. Middle-class people are often the most vocal defenders of the system because they believe they're almost there. Just a little more hustle, one more raise, if I can just pay off this loan. They don't burn the system, they bet on it, even as it extracts more from them than it gives. Policing each other, the internal control mechanism. Here's where it gets dark. The middle class doesn't just obey, they enforce obedience on others. They shame the poor, work harder. They mock the rich, probably cheated. They ridicule the dreamers, get real. They dismiss the rebels, that's not how life works. Why? Because if someone escapes the system, it threatens their belief in it. So rather than ask tough questions, they silence those who do. This is how control sustains itself, when the prisoners start defending the prison. Career as identity, the ultimate trap. Middle-class culture doesn't just promote work, it worships it. What do you do? Where do you work? What's your title? Your job becomes your identity. Lose your job? You don't just lose income, you lose status, community, self-worth. That's by design. When your identity is tied to your role, you're less likely to walk away, even when it's killing you. You stay in toxic workplaces. You tolerate disrespect. You overwork. You underlive. Because without the job, who would you even be? Why disobedience looks dangerous. If you step outside the script, people panic. You quit your job to travel? Irresponsible. You don't want kids? Selfish. You leave corporate to start a small business? Risky. You live simply instead of climbing the ladder? Lazy. But ask yourself, who created those definitions? And who benefits when you stay afraid of breaking them? The system frames freedom as danger and compliance as maturity. But real maturity is this: choosing a life that's true, even if it looks strange to those still asleep. Success without obedience is revolution. What terrifies the system? A person who thinks freely, lives simply, earns creatively, doesn't crave external validation, chooses meaning over money, builds outside the rules. Because that person can't be predicted, can't be guilted, can't be bought, can't be controlled. They don't just exit the game, they prove it was a game all along. So the next time someone praises your stability, ask yourself, is this success or just well-behaved obedience with a nice paycheck? Because the system doesn't reward freedom, it rewards those who help it stay unchallenged. And maybe, just maybe, that's not a reward you need anymore.
The silent suffering, what people don't say out loud. From the outside, everything looks fine. The mortgage is being paid, the kids are in school, there's a steady job, a family car, weekend groceries, and maybe even a vacation once a year. It's the picture of a successful life. But behind closed doors, there is a quiet ache that never leaves, and nobody talks about it. The emptiness hidden behind routine. You wake up, check your phone, rush through breakfast, get the kids ready, drive through traffic, sit through meetings, push papers, answer emails, come home exhausted, scroll, numb out, sleep. Repeat. You're not falling apart, but you're not living either. It's a kind of spiritual starvation, where nothing is wrong enough to complain about, but nothing feels right either. You're existing, functioning, performing. But inside, something is dying. Your sense of meaning. Why nobody talks about it? You're not supposed to admit this, because admitting it would mean something's broken. The dream was a lie. Your efforts weren't enough. You followed the script, and it still didn't work. So instead, you pretend. Smile at work. Post curated photos. Tell people, I'm good, just busy. Convince yourself this is just part of life, because everyone around you is doing the same. They're silently aching too. And if you break the silence, you remind them of their own pain. So they shut you down, or they look away. Be grateful. It could be worse. You have so much. But gratitude isn't the opposite of emptiness. You can be grateful and still be quietly drowning. The mental health crisis no one sees coming. Middle-class people are often the most mentally distressed, but the least likely to ask for help. Why? Because they're not allowed to struggle. They're too privileged to complain, too functional to be seen as broken, too busy to stop, too ashamed to say the truth. So they carry undiagnosed anxiety, unspoken resentment, unfelt grief, unprocessed trauma, unacknowledged depression, and they medicate it with wine at night, retail therapy, overwork, binge watching, scrolling until the thoughts go quiet. They're not okay, but no one asks. And if they did, what would you even say? The box you built for yourself. What makes it worse is this: you built this life. You chose the job, you bought the house, you said yes to the responsibilities, you followed the path. So when it starts to feel unbearable, you blame yourself. I shouldn't feel this way. Other people have it harder. Maybe I'm just being ungrateful. Maybe I'm the problem. But you're not the problem. The system is the problem. The script is the problem. The idea that you must pretend to be fine while dying inside, that is the problem. Burnout isn't failure, it's a signal. The exhaustion you feel, it's not weakness, it's not laziness, it's evidence that your soul is rejecting a life that doesn't fit, that the pace is unsustainable, that the meaning is missing, that the reward doesn't match the cost. You weren't meant to survive this way, waking up tired, living for weekends, craving retirement while still in your prime. This isn't adulthood. It's a slow spiritual collapse wrapped in politeness. We need to normalize the truth. It's okay to say, I don't love my life. I feel disconnected. I don't know who I am anymore. I want something else, but I don't know what. Because silence keeps you stuck. Shame keeps you hidden. Pretending keeps you in pain. But honesty, that's where the real escape begins. Not with quitting your job tomorrow, not with burning it all down, but with the first whisper, something's not working, and I deserve to find out what would. You are not alone. If you feel this way, know this: you're not crazy. You're not broken. You're not weak. You're awakening. You're seeing the cracks in a life that was never truly yours. You're hearing the quiet voice beneath the noise, saying, there must be more than this. And there is. But you won't find it by pretending everything's fine. You'll find it by finally telling the truth, even if your voice shakes.
The fear of falling, why you stay, even when you know you should leave. Sometimes the cage is open, but you still don't walk out. Not because you love the cage, but because you're terrified of what's outside it. You know something is wrong. You feel it in your bones. And yet, you stay. Because what's out there is unknown. And what's in here, while painful, is at least predictable. The power of what if. The moment you think of leaving the path, quitting your job, downsizing your lifestyle, starting something new, your mind attacks you. What if I fail? What if I regret it? What if I can't come back? What will people think? Fear doesn't whisper. It screams. It shows you visions of disaster, imaginary poverty, embarrassment, isolation, shame. It tells you, at least here, you're safe. But here's the truth. The system doesn't have to chain you. It just needs to scare you into never leaving. Fear of loss versus hope of freedom. Psychologists have proven something chilling. Humans are more motivated to avoid loss than to seek gain. So even if the life you could build outside the script is better, you'll stay in the script just to avoid the risk of being worse. You protect the job you hate, the image you perform, the house you can't afford, the status that brings you no joy, the routine that's killing your spirit. Because letting go feels like dying. But staying, that's the slow death no one talks about. You've been trained to fear freedom. Let's be honest. The system doesn't prepare you to be free. It prepares you to be a dependent performer. You've spent your whole life being told freedom is risky, security is everything, freedom is for the lucky or the rich. You're not special enough to break the mold. So now, when you feel the urge to break away, you second-guess everything. Who do I think I am? I should just be grateful.
People like me don't get to live like that. But those aren't your thoughts. Those are installations planted by a system that profits from your compliance. They don't want you free. They want you safe enough to be useful, scared enough to stay put. Comfort becomes a prison you defend. Maybe you've built a life around comfort, a stable income, a nice neighborhood, friends who expect you to stay the same, kids in school, a rhythm that numbs the pain. You know it's unsustainable. You know it's not real joy, but the idea of disrupting it? Terrifying. Because disruption means confrontation with your choices, with your identity, with your truth. So you do what most people do. You choose known misery over unknown possibility. And that's not failure. That's conditioning. The voices that keep you stuck. Even if you're brave enough to imagine leaving, you'll hear voices, inside and out. That's selfish. That's irresponsible. You've come this far. Don't throw it away. Grow up. Be realistic. But whose voice is that, really? Is it yours? Or is it your parents', your bosses', society's? How many decisions in your life were made to avoid disappointing someone else? How much of your success is really just fear in a better suit? The mirror moment. There comes a point, quiet, terrifying, sacred, when you look in the mirror and say, if I stay here, I will lose myself completely. That moment is brutal because it strips away every excuse, every illusion, every justification. It shows you the cost of staying, not just in money, but in soul. And in that moment, you have a choice. Keep pretending, or finally start becoming. Your fear is a signal, not a stop sign. What if fear isn't telling you to stop? What if fear is a sign you're on the edge of something real? What if your fear of falling is actually your desire to fly, disguised as dread? The fear you feel when imagining a new life is the same fear people feel before they jump into water for the first time. And the only way out is through it. Leaving isn't easy, but staying can be deadlier. Let's be clear, leaving the script is hard. Creating your own path is uncertain. Letting go of stability is risky. But staying in a life that's killing your soul, that's a risk too. A slower, quieter, more acceptable death, but death nonetheless. You don't need to burn it all down tomorrow, but you can take a step. One truth spoken, one decision reclaimed, one pattern broken. So ask yourself honestly, what am I really afraid of? And what will it cost me if I stay afraid forever? Because if you don't choose your life, someone else will choose it for you. And they will choose one that keeps them comfortable, not you. Breaking the mindset, what it takes to escape. Escaping the middle-class trap isn't just about quitting your job, selling your house, or moving to a different city. It starts with something far harder, breaking the mindset that built the prison in the first place. Because the real cage isn't made of bricks or bills, it's made of beliefs. And until those beliefs are shattered, you'll keep rebuilding the same trap, no matter how far you run. the mindset that keeps you trapped. Here are the invisible thoughts that hold people hostage. Security is more important than freedom. Stability equals success. Comfort means I'm doing something right. If I just earn more, things will get better. Everyone lives like this. It must be normal. It's too late to start over. I'm not the kind of person who takes risks. These aren't harmless thoughts. They are mental software installed without your permission. By family, by media, by school, by tradition, by culture. And like all software, if you don't update it, it will keep running old programs long after they've stopped serving you. Burning the false metrics. One of the first steps to escaping is this: redefine success. Because the system taught you that success looks like a big house, a title, a six-figure job, respect from peers, being busy and important, being tired but proud. But here's the truth. Success is feeling whole. Success is owning your time. Success is saying no without guilt. Success is doing work you believe in. Success is not needing to prove anything to anyone. Success is peace, not performance. Once you redefine success, you stop chasing their dream and start building yours. Detoxing from validation addiction. Another mental prison is this: what will people think? Your boss, your family, your high school classmates you haven't spoken to in 10 years, random people on the internet. You're performing for an audience that doesn't matter. And every time you choose image over integrity, you tighten your own chains. Freedom begins when you decide, I don't need approval to live my truth. You are allowed to disappoint expectations, outgrow your environment, leave the path others chose for you, be misunderstood, because no one else is living your life, and no one else will pay the price for your regrets. Simplicity as a weapon. The system thrives on complexity. The more you have, the more you owe. The more you owe, the more you fear. The more you fear, the easier you are to control. But when you simplify, something magical happens. You spend less. You need less. You fear less. You become lighter. A simpler life isn't a smaller life. It's a clearer one. Minimalism isn't aesthetic. It's rebellion. Because when you don't need much to be happy, you can't be bought. Unlearning and relearning. To break free, you must become a student again. But this time, not of textbooks, of yourself. Ask, what beliefs do I hold that aren't mine? What truths have I ignored to fit in? Where did I get the idea that I can't change? What would my life look like if I was truly free? Read books that challenge the mainstream narrative. Listen to people who walked away and never looked back. Write until you uncover your real voice beneath the polite mask. This isn't about rebellion for rebellion's sake. It's about returning to your original self, before fear, shame, and duty took over. Small acts of reclamation. Don't wait for a dramatic escape. Start small. Say no to one thing that drains you. Turn down a promotion you don't want. Wake up 30 minutes earlier just for silence. Cook your own food instead of ordering out. Cancel a subscription you don't use. Take a walk without your phone. Tell the truth when someone asks, "How are you?" These are not minor acts. They are revolutions in seed form. because every act of self-ownership, no matter how small, rewires your brain to trust yourself again. And that trust is what the system fears most. The cost of awakening. Let's be honest, escaping the middle-class mindset will cost you. Some friends will drift. Your family might not understand. People will call you unrealistic. Your comfort will shrink before your freedom grows. You will doubt yourself again and again. But the alternative is staying stuck in a life that never felt like yours to begin with. Pain for a purpose is better than numbness for a lifetime. What happens when you finally break free? You begin to see clearly. You work because you want to, not because you have to. You spend money like a tool, not like a drug. You let go of things that used to define you. You stop competing and start creating. You attract people who see you, not your status. You sleep better. You laugh more. You come home to yourself. That's not fantasy. That's what happens when a mind is no longer enslaved by invisible scripts. And you don't have to wait for permission, because no one is coming to set you free, but you, the new poor. Why the middle class is disappearing. There was a time when being middle class meant something. A decent income, a home you could afford, health care that didn't bankrupt you, retirement that didn't terrify you, and the belief that if you worked hard, things would improve. But that time is over. The middle class isn't thriving, it's shrinking. And many don't even realize they've already joined the new poor. The numbers don't lie. Let's look at the data. Real wages have stagnated for decades, even as productivity skyrocketed. Home prices have increased exponentially, far outpacing income. Education costs have ballooned, trapping millions in lifelong student debt. Healthcare has become a luxury. Job security is disappearing in a gig-based, contract-driven economy. Savings? Most middle-class families don't even have $1,000 in the bank. This isn't a cycle. This is a decline by design. The middle isn't the middle anymore. It's just the illusion of being one step above drowning. Inflation is a silent thief. Every year, your money is worth less, but your effort is worth the same or less. Groceries cost more. Rent skyrockets. Energy bills rise. Insurance premiums explode. But your paycheck stays flat. Maybe increases 3%. That 3% is eaten by inflation before you even notice it. It's not just that you're earning less. It's that the system is extracting more from you with each passing year. And most people don't realize they're getting poorer because the numbers go up, but the life doesn't. The disappearing dream. There was a time when a single income could buy a house, raise a family, save for retirement, take vacations, support a dignified life. Now, 2 incomes often barely cover the basics. And many young people today are delaying marriage, skipping homeownership, living with parents into their 30s, putting off kids not for freedom, but for survival, working multiple jobs just to stay afloat. This isn't freedom. It's functional poverty with Wi-Fi and nice clothes. Why it's hard to see. So why don't people revolt? Because the trappings of middle-class life still look good on the outside. You have a car, you own a phone, you can order food with an app, you post photos from the beach once a year. But behind the scenes, you're paying with debt, you're working longer hours, you're stretched thin, emotionally and financially. You're one emergency away from collapse. This is the new poor. People who appear fine until one tiny crack opens and everything falls through. Who really benefits from this shift? As the middle class collapses, one group rises, the ultra-wealthy. While you worry about gas prices, they buy more land. While you stress about rent, they buy up housing stock to turn into rentals. While you hustle for security, they make money in their sleep, off your labor, your clicks, your fear. This isn't just an unfortunate trend. It's a feature of the system. Debt keeps you working. Insecurity keeps you compliant. Comparison keeps you spending. Fear keeps you silent. And as long as the middle class stays in denial, the system wins. Downward mobility, the new normal. In the past, each generation believed they'd do better than the last. Now, that belief is disappearing. Millennials and Gen Z are projected to be poorer than their parents. Retirement is becoming a fantasy. Homeownership is slipping out of reach. Side hustles are no longer optional, they're survival. Burnout is becoming baseline. This is not a temporary dip. This is a redesign of society where a comfortable life is no longer the baseline, but a privilege. Middle class in name only. Many still identify as middle class, but identity doesn't pay the bills. You can call yourself stable. You can call yourself successful. You can wear the right clothes and speak the right way. But if you can't cover a $1,000 emergency, if you rely on credit to survive, if you feel one layoff away from collapse, if you're aging without savings, then you're not middle class. You're surviving inside a myth. What happens when it breaks? The tragedy is this. People blame themselves. They think, I should have worked harder. I made bad choices. I'm just not good with money. I should have followed the rules better. But the truth is, you did follow the rules. You did everything they said. And still, you're sinking. Because the game changed, and they forgot to tell you. So what now? Acknowledging the myth isn't about despair. It's about clarity. You can't fix what you won't face, and you can't escape what you're still pretending is real. The middle class, as sold to you, is disappearing. But maybe that's not a tragedy. Maybe it's an invitation to build something more honest, more grounded, more yours. Building real freedom. Outside the middle-class cage. Once you realize the middle-class dream was never built for you to thrive, you have two options. Stay and cling to the illusion. Walk away and build something real. But let's be clear. Real freedom isn't about becoming rich overnight. It's about reclaiming ownership of your time, mind, and choices. That doesn't happen by accident. It happens by design. Your design. Redefining what freedom means. Forget what they told you. Freedom isn't a high income, a fancy job title, a mortgage-free house, a big retirement account. Those are side effects, not foundations. True freedom is waking up and choosing how to spend your time, saying no without fear of punishment, living beneath your means, not above your anxiety, creating value on your own terms, sleeping at night without debt on your back, being mentally unowned by anyone else's expectations. This isn't a fantasy, it's a philosophy, and it begins in your daily life. Step 1. Simplify ruthlessly. The first step to getting free? Stop trying to look successful. Cancel the subscriptions. Sell what you don't use. Downsize your lifestyle. Move to a cheaper city. Cut the noise. Drop the pressure. Every dollar you stop spending on image is a vote for your autonomy. Don't just declutter your closet. Declutter your calendar, your digital life, your emotional energy. The less you need, the harder you are to control. Money. Step 2. Spend less than you earn, always. This might sound simple, but it's revolutionary in a world built on consumer debt. You don't need to be rich to be free. You need to own more of what you earn. That means no lifestyle creep, no spending to impress, no chasing trends. Create a buffer between you and desperation, a cash cushion, a gap wide enough to let you breathe. Freedom doesn't start at 6 figures. It starts the moment your money buys you time. Mind. Step 3. Learn skills that make you mobile. Want to break the trap? Learn something that can't be taken from you. In the new world, you don't need credentials. You need capabilities. Skills that pay you to think, create, solve, connect, build. Learn online. Practice in public. Fail forward. Because the system can fire you, but it can't erase your skills. And when you own your ability to earn, you begin to own your life path. Step 4. Build multiple income streams. Middle-class thinking. One job, one income, one employer, safety. Freedom thinking. More than one way to make money. Leverage, flexibility. Start small. Freelance. Sell digital products. Write online. Teach. Rent something out. Invest wisely. You don't need 7-figure businesses. You need enough diversity to avoid being crushed by a single point of failure. Because 1 income is a cage. 2 is a door. 3, that's a staircase out. Step 5. Protect your mind. You've spent your whole life being told how to think. Now protect your thoughts like they're sacred. Unfollow toxic media. Stop doom scrolling. Read timeless books. Journal to detox your own beliefs. Surround yourself with people who build, not perform. Your mind is the primary battlefield, and the more control you have over it, the less the system can use fear, shame, or comparison to trap you. Freedom starts with mental sovereignty. Step 6. Build systems, not just goals. Goals are temporary. Systems are sustainable. Don't just say, I want to make $5,000 a month outside my job. Create a system for that. Don't just say, I want to stop overspending. Build systems that remove temptation. The goal is to build a life that runs without chaos, where discipline doesn't feel like pain, but like peace. Systems equals freedom you don't have to re-earn daily. Step 7. Choose where and how you live deliberately. Middle-class culture tells you to chase the best neighborhoods, the biggest houses, the prestigious zip codes. But real freedom often lives in unexpected places. Ask, where can I live for less and work less? Where are people more focused on community than competition? What environment supports my mind, not just my image? Geography is a tool. Use it. Because $3,000 a month in one place may trap you and set you free in another. Step 8. Redefine work and rest. Middle-class living glorifies hustle, burnout, weekends as survival, vacations as escape. But when you live free, you don't need to escape from your life. Work becomes craft, rest becomes renewal, time becomes yours again. True freedom doesn't mean never working. It means working with meaning and on your terms. So freedom is not for sale. It's built. The system wants you to believe that freedom is for the lucky, for the rich, for the bold. But it's actually for the awake. Those who choose to see the trap, then quietly, steadily build their way out. You don't need permission. You need a plan and the courage to live by it. So ask yourself, if I wasn't afraid, how would I start building my life from scratch? Now do that, one step at a time, one choice at a time, one act of courage at a time. Because outside the cage, your life is waiting. You were never meant to win. Now you know. Let's be honest. You were never meant to win. Not in the way you were told. Not in their game. Not under their rules. Not by playing the script they handed you. You were meant to obey, consume, chase safety, avoid risk, stay in your place. And all of it, every promotion, every upgrade, every congratulation was designed to make you feel like you were getting somewhere. But the finish line was always just out of reach. The game was rigged from the start. From childhood, you were programmed. Get a good job, buy a nice house, stay out of trouble, follow the rules, be realistic. But no one told you. The rules were made by people who never followed them. While you studied, they inherited. While you saved, they printed money. While you obeyed, they bought influence. While you worked, they watched their assets grow. You were playing Monopoly. They were owning the board. Now you know. And that changes everything. Because once you see the trap, you can't unsee it. The fake security, the engineered anxiety, the programmed obedience, the comfort sold as reward, the debt sold as opportunity, the performance sold as purpose. It was never about your freedom. It was always about your function. And now you know. Warning. What you do next matters. You can't change the past, but you can choose what happens now. You can keep pretending because it's easier. Stay in the cycle because it's familiar. Wait for someone to save you because it feels safer. Or you can take the truth, as brutal and beautiful as it is, and let it set fire to the life you never wanted. And from the ashes, build something real. This isn't about rage, it's about rebirth. Yes, it's unfair. Yes, you were lied to. Yes, you were set up to fail. But don't stay in bitterness. Don't just tear it all down. Build a mind that can't be bought, a life that doesn't need validation, a rhythm that honors your soul, a path that no one else has to approve, a version of success that feels like peace. Because the real revolution isn't marching in the streets. It's choosing a life so honest, so deliberate, and so self-owned that the system can no longer use you. You don't owe them your life. Not your boss, not the government, not the voices in your head, not the narrative in your culture. You owe your life to the younger version of you who once dreamed bigger, the present version of you who knows the truth, the future version of you who's still waiting for your courage. That version isn't waiting for a miracle. It's waiting for you to stop surviving and start living. Walk away on your terms. You don't need to burn bridges. You don't need to scream or prove anything. You just need to whisper to yourself, I'm done performing. I'm done pretending. I'm done playing small in a rigged game. And then walk, step by step, choice by choice, brick by brick, out of the cage. Not toward perfection, but toward something better, a life that belongs to you. Final words. You were never meant to win their game, but you were born with everything you need to build your own. No, it won't be easy, but it will be yours. And in a world of rented lives and borrowed dreams, that makes you dangerous. So go, quietly, confidently, completely, because now you know.